Thank you all for coming. I'm Kieran, Donahue, a Chief Deputy for the Canyon County Sheriff's Office. Behind me is Chief Leroy Forsman from the Nampa Police Department, Chief Allgood from Caldwell PD, and of course Brian Taylor from the Prosecuting Attorney's Office here in Canyon County. Last night, approximately 11 p.m., our officers, Canyon County deputies, had contact with an individual that was being sought by Caldwell Police Department for a possible aggravated assault charge, under suspicion for that charge earlier in the day in the Caldwell area. Last night, as I say, about 11 p.m., our officers found the individual's vehicle at a residence in the western side of our county, out by Willis Road. Several officers went to the house to make contact with the suspect, identified in the photo here to my left, and upon approaching the house, the officers observed the suspect run from the house and immediately gave chase to the individual and were immediately fired upon by the suspect. Several shots were fired by the suspect, striking two Canyon County Sheriff's deputies, wounding them, and ultimately the suspect was able to flee the area, but not before at least one of our Canyon County officers returned fire, which we believe struck the individual at the time, perhaps we thought may have wounded him. Once that call went out, we had a tremendous support from outside agencies, including Idaho State Police, Caldwell Police Department, Nampa Police Department, Ada County Sheriff's Office, the Metro Violent Crime and Gang Task Force sponsored by the FBI, Parma Police Department, Wilder Police Department. Virtually every agency within this jurisdiction responded to our call for assistance because we had two officers down. A very exhaustive and thorough search was conducted, and ultimately we were able to identify a certain area where we thought the suspect may be, and then utilized a Canyon County canine tracking dog to try to move closer to where the suspect location was. Ultimately, we did narrow that down to a particular residence on Richland, and as our SWAT team, Canyon County SWAT team, moved in to secure the area, they moved into the garage area of the residence and immediately saw the suspect, who then immediately turned a gun upon himself and fired a single bullet into himself, a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Medics were immediately called up to the scene, and care was given to the suspect, who was then transported to an area hospital. I'm going to turn the mic over to Leroy Forsman, who's going to be leading our critical incident task force investigation with an officer-involved shooting. As most of you know, that's immediately turned over to a non-conflict agency to conduct the investigation. I will, before I leave the mic, say that we are honored and moved by the incredible support of our fellow officers in law enforcement, not just here in Canyon County, but outside our jurisdiction, who responded last night to, again, aid these officers who were in a critical situation. I will say that one of our officers was treated at the hospital and released. Unfortunately, our second officer received more serious wounds and is undergoing fairly serious medical attention right now today. And we are extending our thoughts and prayers to both our officers, and just want to make sure that their families understand how much we know they sacrifice each day in the line of duty. So with that, I'm going to turn over the mic to Leroy Forsman.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning. As Kieran said, the Nampa Police Department will be the lead investigating agency in the Critical Incident Task Force as we look into this case. I will at this time confirm that the suspect is Kyle Allen Batt, 27 years of age, a Caldwell resident. I do not have any further medical update on the officers other than what Kieran just said, nor do I have any update on the suspect's medical condition at this time. Our investigators are currently still out at the crime scenes collecting evidence. This is an ongoing process, and will take some time for that to be completed. At this time, no charges have been filed in this case. We are having the Canyon County Prosecutor's Office look at the case itself, and they will review it prior to making any formal charge. The point of contact for this Critical Incident Task Force will be Sergeant Tim Randall from the Nampa Police Department. He's in the back of the room, and he'll have business cards for each of you as you go out. You can contact him when you need to. He's also prepared to make statements as information becomes available. Thank you.
I'm sure that Prosecuting Attorney Brian Taylor will be open to some questions. There are certainly questions that we cannot answer due to the sensitivity of the case and the nature of the incident, but if you do have questions, we will try to answer them to the best of our ability. Natalie?
Can you explain a little bit more? I know that the two deputies, it sounds like they're veterans of the department. Can you tell us a little bit more? I mean, how long they've been here, some of the work that they've done? I mean, you probably had experiences working with them.
Yes, both officers are 6-year veterans of our Canyon County Sheriff's Office. Both have had work in the detention facility, and both have been promoted to a patrol position, and both have experience, basically long-time experience here. So they're not new to what we do. They're not new to the force. They're very qualified officers, and in this situation, when they first realized that the suspect may be at this residence, as per our policy and standard working protocol, the team leader, the sergeant on duty, waited till we had an appropriate number of personnel in his mind to even approach the house. So the safeguards were taken. The approach was correct, in my opinion, and certainly, again, in this case, we can't determine what the suspect's going to do, and in this case, he chose to fire upon our officers once he saw them, and then things kind of went in a southerly direction at that point.
How many officers were there, or deputies that responded?
There were actually 5 officers on scene at the time of the incident.
Just to follow up, subsequently, has there been any indication of why the suspect decided to take that point to challenge the arrest?
Certainly not something I could answer at this time. I just don't have that information.
What was the original call that stemmed all this? I mean, why did they head out? Why did the officers head out there in the first place? What was the call that they received?
And Chief, you may have more information. Basically, this originated from a possible aggravated assault incident that occurred in the jurisdiction of Caldwell City under the direction of the Caldwell Police Department. Was the investigators on that, but they reached out to Canyon County Sheriff's Office looking for assistance to attempt to locate and detain that individual based on the aggravated assault potential charge.
So anything unusual about this incident compared to others? Obviously, shooting is a very serious situation, but anything developed in this that you hadn't run across before, or something that strikes your mind?
Not really. I think I'll go back to the fact that this is a very critical incident and fast-moving. Things happen in split second. The officers have split seconds to make their decisions. One thing that the officers were able to do, one of the officers at least was able to return fire once they were receiving fire, and that was a heads up on that officer to try to keep his fellow officers safe and try to stop the threat. Outside of that, I think it's not really unusual. I mean, certainly, like you say, unusual for this area to have that kind of thing happen, but we train for this day in, day out. We're prepared for it day in, day out. You hope it never happens, but as our officers prove, they're ready for when it does. Natalie?
The officer who was fired back at the suspect, is he still on duty, or?
No, as in all cases, rather, per our, based on our policy, those officers that were involved at the scene have been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation, and that's very standard procedure in any case like this. John?
Do you know if the suspect had any other injuries other than the self-inflicted one? Was he struck by any of the officers?
Yes, he was struck by at least one one of our officers, the officer that returned fire, he was struck at least once.
Any indication how serious the injury was?
I do not. I just know that he was struck at least once by our return fire.
Do you know the suspect's criminal history? Does he have any violent crimes in his past?
You know, we will try to provide that for you before you leave and see what we can get for you. I don't have it at hand.
And how many shots did he fire at the deputies?
Leroy, the investigation is ongoing. As Chief Forsman pointed out, he has teams of individuals out working the investigation, which we are not a part of.
We don't have a number at this point. This is fairly early in the investigation, but we do not have a number of rounds. We do believe it was multiple rounds. Other than that, I can't be specific.
You know how many shots the officer fired?
I do not know.
Okay,
I don't
so
have that information either.
Both sides of the numbers you're not sure about right now?
That's correct.
Chief Forsman, you feel that this is a fairly, obviously, it's a critical situation, but is it fairly routine? Do you notice anything that you're really going to be focusing on perhaps differently?
No, I don't think we're going to focus on anything other than what we would typically do in this type of investigation. As Kieran said, we respond to these types of calls day in and day out. They certainly don't end up in this manner typically, but this is the type of call that our folks respond to all the time, and they are prepared and they are trained well for this type of thing. But I can tell you the investigation through the Critical Incident Task Force will be very thorough, and we've got numerous investigators from numerous agencies involved at this time.
I know that earlier this morning some of the homes were evacuated. Now, was one of the homes that was evacuated, was that where the suspect was found?
We're not going to comment on that at this time because of evidentiary reasons. We just can't get into any specifics at this time.
And everyone looking for the one suspect, correct?
At this time, we believe this is the lone suspect in this case.
When he shot himself, can you tell us where he shot himself? Was it in the head or?
No, we can't put that out at this time either. And frankly, I don't know the exact location where the wound was, so I wouldn't speculate on that.
Is there in terms of recovery for the officer who suffered the serious wounds, can you give us any more?
No, I can't. That's a question for medical professionals, and I certainly can't do that at this time.
Kieran, I don't know if maybe you could speak to how the sheriff's office is doing this morning. I mean, obviously these are people you're all very close to.
Great question. Appreciate it. Obviously, as you see in the back of the room, we have a number of officers and administrative command staff here. Really, no one has slept through the night. A few of us went home and changed clothes so we could look a little bit more presentable this morning. But this is a very tight-knit organization. We have 300-plus personnel with the Canyon County Sheriff's Office alone. My phone has never stopped ringing since early this morning when this incident took place from outside agencies, law enforcement, pledging their support, what they can do for the officers' families, what they can do for the Sheriff's Office itself. Every one of these guys and ladies that work for us are extremely concerned about our officers because they all know each other and worked with each other for years. So, you know, it's a hit to the agency, but thankfully it looks like we have a good prognosis at this time. It's all I know. So very thankful that we have that and thankful for the support. Now, when I personally received the phone call from our dispatch this morning when this incident took place, the first thing is clarification. What did you just say? To make sure I'm hearing it correctly. And then where are our resources? Who's been notified? And make sure that the information gets out to every available resource, including the SWAT team and our command staff, to make sure in this situation everyone has a responsibility. So my first goal is to make sure everybody who is in the supervisory roles have been notified and getting their people and assets in place. And then, you know, really, it's by training that all of us here and in the field, those years of training, you do that first. It's just mechanical to do that, and then you start thinking of the personal side once things start to slow down.
In the home which the officers responded to, where Mr. Batt opened fire on them, was this Mr. Batt's residence? Was this his home? Can you go through that?
I cannot confirm that. I don't know what his actual address is. I know that there were two homes, two residences involved. In this case, I don't know which was his or if either were actually his.
Were there other people in the, you may have covered that already, but were there other people in the homes that officer, law enforcement encountered?
Not to my knowledge. I believe that the home that we're talking about specifically was evacuated prior to that contact.
But you mentioned another home. Was there anyone in that one?
The crime scene actually involves two places, two residences. I don't have any specifics on either of those at this time.
If no more questions, there's a couple of people, obviously, these gentlemen behind me can be, make themselves available to speak with you afterwards, and also Sheriff Smith and others here in the crowd. So thank you so much for coming. Appreciate the coverage, and thanks for the heartfelt wishes that your agencies have also given to us. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.